everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make some fried chicken cutlets with bake up our homemade sourdough, which is a parmesan, black pepper, and rosemary. We're going to saute up some green beans, make some mashed potatoes, and then I have a little bit of my butter pie crust left from the other day, so I'm going to make some fried ham pies with that as well. So let's flip out our sourdough because this is going to be the thing that takes us the longest. And carefully pull it. There we go. And let's give this a nice score. I'm going to just do, a big kind of expansion score right here. And then we'll do, I'm going to do kind of a wheat leaf this way. Make it nice and pretty. We'll add some little ones in it, but keep it ideally pretty simple. And let's pop this in our Dutch oven. I do have my Dutch oven preheated here up to 500 degrees, so it is quite hot. So we're going to transfer this, and then we are going to put the lid on and bake it at 500 for 20 minutes, and then we'll turn it down to 450, and we'll bake it at 450 for 20 minutes. And I had this Dutch oven preheating for like 45 minutes to an hour. I find that I get the best pop on it and the best kind of like cook up is when my Dutch oven is really, really hot. So that preheating, I think, actually does wonders with it. So at 500, we're going to bake for 20 minutes. Okay. While we have that baking, let's prep up our apples for our fried hand pies that we're going to do. Then we're going to prep our chicken and get dinner going. Oh, and we'll get our potatoes going. So we're going to just cook up some kind of, I'm going to do a quick peel and then dice up my apples here to fill up our hand pies with. I'm making probably more than enough apples to actually use in this, but my kids love spiced apples. So I figured if I'm going to do the work to do them, might as well make enough for everyone to eat as well. I'm going to take off the skins because the skins of the apples will not like reduce down or get soft. So they'll be chewy and stringy inside your apple pie or your hand pie. So you want to make sure to peel them. And then we're just going to cube them, do a quick cook on them. We'll add a little bit of cornstarch to kind of thicken it up so we have a nice gel filling inside our, our hand pie. And then I'm actually going to fry them up right before I fry up my chicken so that we'll have them ready and cooling and they'll be perfect. It's one of those things where I made an apple pie earlier this week and I did, a lattice topping on it, which means I wasn't going to use all of my pie crust. And I don't like to waste anything. So I have a bit of pie crust. And I was like, I think I can get, 2 or 3 apple hand pies out of it.
You have a question? Change your mind on the pork chop?
It's quite funny. So I was going to have that. And then all of a sudden, my oldest daughter told me she's going out with friends, going to the movies. She wasn't going to be home for dinner. Then my son, my 13-year-old son, is helping my mother plant a bunch of monkey grass and hostas at her house. So he's going to spend the night with my parents. So I was down another kid. And then my next oldest, my second daughter, Evie, is having dinner at her friend's house, which is our neighbors. So I was down to the little boys and my husband, and I was like, well, I'm not going to cook up my pork chops that's one of my kids' favorite meals. They love pork chops. So I was like, oh, let me do something because I don't need as big of a meal now. But I needed to cook up my sourdough because it's already been proofing. It's day 2 of the cold proof, and I don't want to push it for that. So I was like, what could we do? And I was like, oh, I've got some chicken breast, so we'll do chicken cutlets because Teddy loves that. And, So it was a change, but I had to pivot because I lost half my family with them just going over to friends' houses and whatnot. It's funny how quickly your pans can change and you don't even know it. So we'll have our pork chops, but we'll save them up. But I didn't want to, cook them up and then all my kids be sad that they didn't get the pork chops. Okay, let's get these last little bits, and then I'm gonna just do a quick chop on them, throw them up to start kind of getting soft and tender, because our hand pies aren't going to fry very long. So you need to make sure you pre-cook your apples or they'll be crunchy inside. Just gonna grab my big knife over here, and I prefer my apple bits in a hand pie to be smaller. Um, because you are eating it like a finger food. So you don't want to, have a whole chunk of apple come out with you as you're eating it. So I'm going to actually dice them up pretty small. This is going to allow it to also cook up a lot faster than if you were to leave them, bigger slices like you would with a crisp or, an apple pie. Okay. And these are our apples that we, from our apple orchard. We still have a good amount. So I'm interested. I'm like wondering what I'm gonna do next. I'm trying to think of inspiration. I have an idea. I'm gonna do like an apple strudel, but like a puff pastry apple strudel, because like traditional apple strudel, that's like a lot of crazy work that you got to do for it. And I'll probably do a Dutch apple pie. It's funny. I made applesauce bread today, and we have, I think, we have half of a mini loaf left. It was the biggest hit. Like my mom came over and she loved it, and she grabbed one for my stepdad. I had my nieces and nephews over and they had to have some. So it went so fast.
You have a question? Do you have an apple butter recipe?
I was one of those things where I was thinking about doing apple butter. I have made apple butter a few times before, and it's been like a decade since I've done it. So I was like, I might have to go and do it, because I love apple butter, especially on like apple butter on sourdough. Just saying, be delicious. Okay, let's get our apples in here. And whoops, I lost them. This is me trying to slowly pick them in there. Here we go. And again, missed the whole container practically. Okay, we've got our apples diced up in here. Let me turn my back burner on. Since I still have apple cider from the orchard, this is our last gallon. I'm going to use this instead of lemon juice. We don't need a whole lot, just about, like a fourth cup. And if I don't have apple cider, I'll use lemon juice to give this. Apple cider is going to give your filling more of an apple flavor, while lemon gives it a tart flavor. So I really love using apple cider, but again, I don't always have it. Let me give this a little stir. So we're going to give it a little bit of a toss into that apple cider. And then I'm going to spice it up with a little bit of vanilla, cinnamon, and brown sugar. We're going to keep it pretty, whoa, I don't need that much vanilla. You want about a half a teaspoon. That was going to be a big amount. And we're going to do about, I want to say, close to a teaspoon of cinnamon, because we want a great cinnamon flavor in it. And we want it to pop through. After we fry the hand pies, I am going to sprinkle cinnamon sugar on them to give them a little extra pizzazz. And because I don't want to make a glaze, because I feel like glazes always make them sticky. But with a hand pie, you need a little something sweetness to break up the more bland of the pie crust. And then I'm going to do like a third cup of brown sugar. I'm not making it too sweet of a filling inside. I like kind of more of the milder sweetness to it. And we're just going to let this kind of cook up and kind of reduce down. Those apples will sweat out the rest of their juice in a little bit, and then we will throw some cornstarch in there to thicken up, because you want it to be a good gel in there, because if is too runny or liquid, then you're going to have a soggy hand pie that won't fry up nicely. While we are waiting for this cook up. Let's get our potatoes ready, and then we can throw them in. Let me grab my
Yeah,
knife.
question. Can you use white sugar?
You can definitely use white sugar. I prefer the brown sugar because I like that little hint of molasses flavor in it. But yes, you could definitely use white sugar in there. And it, like to me, it really depends on how I want my flavor. If I'm looking for more of that tart apple flavor, white sugar is beautiful. If I'm looking for that spiced apple flavor, brown sugar kind of pairs a little bit better. Okay, I've got some potatoes. We're going to do some mashed potatoes here. So I'm just going to do kind of a quick peel and then we'll cube them up and we'll start to boil them. For really fluffy mashed potatoes, you want to use a russet. They're less waxy, and they're going to give you just that lighter, fluffier mashed potatoes. If you like the waxier, stickier, or I should say the stickier mashed potatoes that are a little bit denser and thicker, then use like a Yukon Gold. They're a bit waxier, which means they're going to be a slightly more starchy mashed potatoes. Now with russet, you do have to peel the skins on for your mashed potatoes because the skins of a russet potato are not tender like a Yukon Gold or a red potato, but they're not too bad to peel off. Get this. Let's see how this one. Give it a good peel. I think this is the one that had like a spot I got to cut off. Here. I know I was trying to think of like, ooh, which side should I do tonight since, I don't have, all my kids here. And I was just like, you know what? Simple. I want mashed potatoes. Feels like a mashed potato today. We've got this big storm coming in tonight and tomorrow. So, we'll cool down the weather because we had a couple hot days after having just this lovely, felt like fall because our days were in the 70s. And I love fall. It's one of my favorite times of year. I always say it's my favorite. And then, the Christmas time hits and I love that as well. I'm a holiday person. I like to celebrate. I like to get very seasonal. Hence, we already have our Halloween decorations out. I do have my standards. I will not decorate for Halloween until after Labor Day, even though my 10-year-old daughter would have me started as soon as August was here. But I was like, nope, we have to have some, we have to wait a little bit. But we've got that going. We've got our outdoor decorations up too, which a lot of times I wait, a couple weeks for that. But Evie was like, no, we need to put them up now. So we are definitely, I think, the first person on the block, maybe the first person in our town to have them up. But, if it makes your kids happy, why not? And I enjoy it. It's a little festive. And I tell you, we're going to do a little walkthrough video of all of our decorations because I'm a little crazy. I've got like 13 tubs of Halloween decorations. And I told my husband, I'm like, I don't think I have enough. I need some more. I feel like our office has no decorations in it. And it needs to be decorated.
You have a question. When do you start to decorate for Christmas?
I will do Christmas. And I know this is maybe not a popular opinion for a lot of people. I will do it as soon as Halloween is over. I used to wait until after Thanksgiving. Growing up, it was always the day after Thanksgiving that we did our big decorating for Christmas. But I find that it just with sometimes Halloween runs really late, or Thanksgiving runs really late, and it robs you of your Christmas cheer. And there are research studies out there that people who decorate for Christmas earlier are happier. So I do it right away, and my children are all on board with it. I am the one blasting, the Christmas music. You can't. Sirius XM, we have that, but their Christmas station doesn't start until typically November 7th, which always makes me a little sad because I need Christmas music.
A lot of people in chat said, yep, November 1st.
Oh, good. See, you know what? I feel like it's just, it's just right. As much as I love Thanksgiving and I think it's a great holiday, it is not a decorate your house holiday. It is not a we are in the spirit holiday. It is a great food holiday. And that's also when all of my siblings get together, but it's not like a spirit. I completely left part of these unchopped, so I'm going to go back and chop them. Because you want to make sure your potatoes are all about the same size. Otherwise, you'll get lumpy mashed potatoes. And that's because with russets, the more you cook them, they disintegrate. But if you don't cook them completely all the way through, that's where you get the chunks. So I'm going to turn my thing up. We're going to start boiling that. And then we're going to check out our apples. And I will start working on getting our hand pies rolled out so we can start kind of frying them up. But these are getting nice and soft, which is beautiful. They smell so well, lovely. Every year I always say, I'm going to do the little potpourri pot that you do on the stove where you put oranges and cloves and all these things because it makes the house smell so delicious. I never do it, but every year I'm like, oh, I should do it. And this cooking up the apples gives you that lovely smell, which is actually kind of nice right now because so for lunch today we made our curried sweet potato and carrot soup, and my house smells like curry right now, and so the spiced apples is quite nice to get that out because curry always has such a strong smell. Okay, I've got 2 sheets of parchment paper here, and this is the butter crust that I made for our lattice pie that we baked up earlier this week, and I'm not one to let it go to waste. And we're gonna roll it out, and I'm gonna cut, and we're gonna fill up our pies here. I'm gonna roll it out just a little bit, and then we're gonna cut a fat circle, and then I'll roll that out because I didn't have time to go look for I have an actual hand pie mold, and I was just like, oh, where is it? But I have this collection of kitchen stuff that I just have stored out in my garage that one day I'm going to organize it, but not today. So we're gonna do it old school kind of fashion way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out some really fat circles, and then I will roll them even thinner so that I'll have a thin, nice circle or circle-esque to make my hand pies. Let's see if I can get one out of this one. Yeah, let's do a little Frankenstein. Now, you can honestly do your hand pies in any shape you want. I just feel like the circle is the traditional. Apparently, I'm not pushing this all the way through. Here we go. Cut it. Okay. We're going to just move these to the side so I can roll out each one. But look at this. This is actually cooking up perfectly. See how all that lovely juice in there? Once I don't know why I was going to say carrots. Once our apples are soft and starting to get a little translucent where you can see through it, that's when we'll throw in our cornstarch. But until then, we will leave it cooking and simmering. The nice thing is the apples, cutting them up small is going to allow them to cook up pretty fast. Now for the hand pies, you want to roll it out to about 1/8 of an inch. You want it thin, but again, you don't want it so thin that it won't hold up when you try to fry it and move it. Here we go. So you see, I've got one already done. So we'll be ready to kind of put it together and do our little crinkle cut on there. And this is just a way, if you don't have that big circle that you need for a hand pie, use your 3-inch or biscuit cutter, have it fat, and then just roll out from there. Say work smarter, not harder. There we go. And we can hear our thunder. Okay. Looks like I have about 2 ready here. Okay. And let's look at our apples here. I'm going to give them a nice stir. And we're going to, there we go. I think we are getting pretty close here to, yep, they're getting actually pretty tender to being able to throw in our cornstarch. Let me roll out. I guess we figured we can do this rolling. Let's shape this one up into a ball. So it looks like if I don't know if anybody's with me, but I'm actually going to get 4 good hand pies out of this last one. Now, I'd like to say that these are going to last, but my husband loves hand pies or apple pies. And he is the one, we'll see how he likes them, because he is the one who likes the cheap ones from the vending machine. Apparently he used to get them from the vending machine in college, and he just loves those gas station. I feel like they're 99 cents hand pies. So hopefully I can win him over, because I haven't made him a hand pie for so long, because normally I just make the big pies in here. Okay. Let's get our cornstarch mixed in, and they're looking great. They look definitely soft. You've got a darker color on them, so nice and translucent. So we're going to use cornstarch as our thickener, and I'm going to put in a little bit of butter. I find that the butter just helps give the cornstarch a really nice texture. It makes it to where it doesn't kind of taste a little powdery. So just about, I'm going to do a teaspoon of butter in there. You don't need a lot, but I find that fat just works a little bit nicer in the gelling up process. And then we're going to sprinkle some cornstarch over this. And I'm going to use probably about a tablespoon, because again, you do not want runny apples. That will give you a soggy hand pie. I'm going to mix it up. We'll let it cook, and it should gel up pretty fast here. There we go. Yes, that is looking just beautiful. So I'm going to turn this off. Let's go check at our sourdough, because we're on the halfway part, which is perfect. And then we will start prepping up the rest of dinner. Okay. So this is always the moment of truth. We've cooked it for 20 minutes at 500 degrees. Now we're going to take our lid off, and we'll turn our temperature down to 450, and we'll cook for another 20 minutes. Looks like we got a great little pop out of that. And again, this is my Parmesan, black pepper, and rosemary loaf, which I think will go really great with tonight's dinner. I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to bring my oven temperature down to 450, because I don't want to have too dark of a crust. And then we're going to bake it for another 20 minutes. And again, I want to have a nice blonde crust. Let's get my 20 minutes on here, and we're good. Okay. Let's get I'm going to get my oil heating up, because by the time I have my oil nice and hot, my hand pies should be stuffed and ready to throw in and fry. I'm going to fry my hand pies up first, and then we'll use that oil to cook the chicken. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want my hand pies to have a savory flavor from any of the spices from our fried chicken. So we're doing that first. And that's also a great way to be able to use this oil for more than one thing. And with this, a lot of times people will just drop their hand pies in a deep fryer. All you need to do is have them halfway submerged, and we'll flip them and fry them over that way. So they'll take a little bit longer to cook this way, but it means you don't need quite as much oil, which is also a win. I'm going to pull this off. Let's see how it is. Perfect. We've got this nice gel. I'm going to let it sit over there while we roll out our last one, and then we'll start stuffing them. I'll let it kind of cool so it's a little bit easier to maneuver. And again, this is just a really simple butter crust. I used 2 sticks of cold butter in here. It was about 4 cups of, getting a little close over there with my wax paper, 4 cups of flour, about, a teaspoon or 2 of salt, and then I want to say about a cup of cold water. And that's it. And it will be delicious. Okay. Let me grab a fork. And let's fill these guys up. Always just make sure you pull them off your parchment paper before you start filling so that you know that they're going to come off easily. Because the worst thing is you don't want them with that stiff, that dough in or the filling in there. And then it gets, stuck.
Yeah, question. How was the soup at lunch?
Oh, it was delicious. It was like the coconut and the curry just worked so well together. And the spices, it was just like a lovely soup. Okay, I'm going to just first pinch them together with my hands, and then we'll go with a fork to give you those crimped edges. The trick with a hand pie is you can't overfill it, or you're going to have it like leak out and get soggy. There we go. So we've got our first one that will be ready to fry here in just a second. Now, you can make hand pies ahead of time. The only thing you have to be careful with is you don't, when you make them ahead, you can freeze them. You don't fry them. You just make them and then you just take them out and then you fry them from frozen. And they take a little bit longer to fry up. But you don't want to pre-fry hand pies because the crust won't be as nice. But you can pre-make them and then just fry them when you're ready. Push that. Kind of looks like a pot sticker or a little dumpling. And then we'll push these together. And you want to make sure your dough is cold. Mine's going to warm it up here once it's, there's fillings in it. But you always want to make sure you start out with as cold dough as possible to allow the best kind of crisp on it. Let's fill. And these aren't going to take very long to fry up, which is really nice because it's something that you can make pretty quickly, especially if you're like me and you have extra pie dough. And I made homemade pie dough, but this is something you can actually make with store-bought pie dough. Now, I personally like, homemade pie dough is always going to be better, but store-bought, it's got a pretty close second. It works really well. And you know what? Sometimes you just got to do what's the most convenient. Here we go. And then let's get our last one in. Here we go. And looks like I have a little bit of spiced apples left over for some of the kids to enjoy. The applesauce last night that I made, though, the kids loved it. And I was like, you guys can't have seconds. I'm sorry. I need this for my applesauce bread, which was delicious. Okay. Looks like I've got this all kind of sealed up. Let's check my oil here. I want to make sure it's nice and hot, and we'll fry it. You just want to make sure you're, and there we got it. Yes. Okay, we've got it good. I'm going to put it in and then we'll turn it down. You want to fry it over like a medium temperature. You need it to be hot to start with, but not too hot that you're going to burn it. There we go. I'm going to gently kind of put these in. And you just make sure it's warm when you start with. I'm going to turn it down to a 4 now that we've got a good sizzle on it. Because if your oil is cold, then you're going to get a soggy pie. But if your oil is too hot, you'll get a burnt pie. So you've got to work, and kind of find the perfect, mixture. Let me seal this guy up a little bit better.
You have a question. Can you use puff pastry dough for this?
Not really, because we're frying it. Now, if you're going to you can make this almost the same dessert with puff pastry, but you're going to make it an apple turnover and you'll bake it in the oven. But you could make the same filling, use your puff pastry dough, but just bake it in the oven at 400 for about 15 minutes. brush it with a little egg wash after you've, sealed it up, and you'll have a baked one. But frying puff pastry doesn't quite work as well. Okay, let's get that going. While I'm going to turn these potatoes down just a smidge. Let's get our chicken up and ready so that we can start frying that up once these apple pies are done. So I'm going to fillet each one of my chicken breasts in half here so that it will cook up faster. Try to cut against the grain. That's going to leave you more tender chicken. And it will give you a shaggier look on your cut, but you'll have a tender, delicious ending, or a better finished product. I'm going to cut off this chunk of fat here. We're frying up the chicken, but that fat will be rubbery. It won't crisp up nicely, so just trim it off. There we go. And this is a huge chicken breast. So this is going to be one big chicken fillet. And then again, the reason why you want to, fillet it in half is because it's going to allow you to cook your chicken up faster. You won't have to worry about it being, not cooked all the way through. I might actually do another fillet on this because it is pretty fat. I said it was a really hefty chicken breast. There we go. So we got another layer out of there. And the reason is I don't want it to be super fat that it's not going to cook all the way through. Okay. I'll give this a little turn because I have one side that does like to cook a little bit longer. Once I start to see kind of this golden light brown edge forming up, I will know that I'm ready to flip it and cook the other side. But let's make our seasoned dredge for our chicken. We've got 3 eggs that we're going to use, and then we're going to start with some flour. I'm going to put about 2 cups of flour in here because I want enough to get through all of our chicken. There we go. And then I'm going to do actually kind of a savory seasoning on our chicken today using, a lot of times I do, I always kind of do savory, but I'm doing more of I want to say an aromatic savory one. So we're going to start with some onion powder. You want a good tablespoon and a half of it. And then I'm going to use some thyme. We're going to use about I want to say a good teaspoon and a half of thyme. And we're going to use about a teaspoon and a half of oregano. So a couple really good shakes around here. And then some of these apple pies are looking pretty good, so I'm going to actually flip them. Let me see. I'm going to turn it down just a smidge, but I can see this one has a nice kind of golden brown. Beautiful. Look at that. And just use the spatula and tongs to help you flip so that you can be pretty gentle with it. There we go. These are looking gorgeous. Here we go. And so we've got about a teaspoon and a half of oregano. Let me do one more shake for good measure. I love oregano. And then I have some rosemary. We're going to do about a teaspoon and a half of rosemary. Now, rosemary can kind of have a chewier texture to it, so you can always get crushed rosemary, or you can smash it up with a mortar and pestle yourself. But I find we're going to crisp it up. It'll be great. We're going to do about a teaspoon of black pepper. Now, if you want a little more heat, you could add in some, cayenne pepper. And then we're going to put in about a tablespoon of garlic salt, which I've got a lot of containers that have just a teeny bit left. So we're going to use those up. Okay. You want to make sure you have it well seasoned and salted so that every chicken is flavorful. If you don't, you're going to have a bland chicken. If you're going through all the work to fry it up, make sure you've got it well seasoned. And then I'm going to use a little bit of Mrs. Dash's Italian blend, just a little bit, about a teaspoon or so. And let me grab a fork. We're going to give this a stir, kind of mix those spices in. We'll add some panko breadcrumbs when we're going to the dredging, but I want to make sure we get all those spices mixed up because they kind of like to hang out sometimes. Okay. I've got 3 eggs. We're going to just crack them and whip them real quick. There we go. Just pop the yolks. We'll do a really quick whip on them. You want to just make sure your whites get incorporated into your yolks so you don't have any long stringy bits of yolks, because that's going to give you a not so great, like it'll give you a big stringy egg white on your chicken. Here we go. Okay, that looks good. Let's check out my hand pies because they are going to cook up fast. And I want to make sure that we get a nice golden, beautiful, look at that, nice. These are ready to pop out. Put them the grease side down. I have them on a drying rack over here. That one needs a little bit longer. Okay. I'm going to grab this. We've got our next one. These two need just a smidge more. They've got more of a blonde color. Okay. So we'll let those cook about 30 seconds more. While those are cooking, I said I'm going to coat them with a little bit of cinnamon sugar, and this is going to give you a nice kind of sweet flavor to that crust. So again, I'm just going to sprinkle them with a little bit of cinnamon sugar on there, and then a little bit we'll flip them over and do it, but I want that to stick on there. And that's going to, again, grab this like lovely flavor to it. Okay, perfect. That one looks good. Let's grab this guy out. And I've got a little apple floating, so I'm going to take him out. And there we go. Nice golden brown as well. So we've got our hand pies all fried up. I'm going to coat them again with a cinnamon sugar mixture. And a little bit, we'll flip them and do a little cinnamon sugar on that side. Now let's get our chicken going. I'm going to keep this over our heat so it's nice and hot, so we will be ready. Once they're dredged, we can actually put them straight in our fryer here. So we're going to go through real quick. I'm going to put them all in our seasoned flour first, and then we will add some panko breadcrumbs, and then we're going to drop them right in to start frying. There we go. And the reason I do season up this dredge is because the flour is the first thing that touches your chicken, and you want to make sure that you have lots of spices there. Because if you leave it bland, then your chicken's not going to have as much flavor. This is that really long. I said it was a pretty big chicken breast. Okay. I'm going to really coat this up and move this out of the way. And beautiful. Now let's add in our panko breadcrumbs. We want about a cup in here. This is going to give a lovely crunch to it as well. Here we go. And I'm going to go into the egg. And the trick is to just do this with one hand so that you have your other one will stay nice and clean. And then we're going to go right into our breading, and then I'm going to drop it straight into our oil that is nice and hot from frying up our hand pies. And again, I know we cooked up our dessert first over our, the thing, but you don't want to add cooked stuff after you fried up chicken because everything will then just taste like fried chicken. Okay, into our egg mixture. And kind of pat this down, coat it up. And I'm going to turn my oil up to about a 5 so it cooks over kind of a medium heat. Again, you want it nice and hot, which is already at because we fried our apple pies in there, our hand pies. Beautiful. And it looks like I can fit one more in there for right now. And here we go. I'll give this a good coating. And lovely. So let's get those in there. I'm going to give my hands, we'll just do this real quick. We'll coat these up and then we'll put them on here and they'll be ready to fry up. And then we're going to finish up. Our mashed potatoes are just about ready to whip up. And then we'll saute off our green beans. I feel like in 5 minutes, our sourdough will be about ready to come out, which will be perfect timing because we're on the last, few minutes of finishing up dinner here. Here we go. And again, pat it down. And now our last one in. And then we're going to coat it. And the trick is, again, make sure you have a well-seasoned dredge so that it will be delicious. Because if you're going to work all this to make homemade, fried chicken cutlets, make sure it's seasoned. You always use more than you think you're going to use. Okay. Wash my hands up real quick. Okay. Let's get ready to take our potatoes. We're going to strain them. We'll put some butter in them, and we will let them kind of sit for a second before we whip them up. But I'm just going to move this. Let's do a quick cleanup for the most part. I'm going to just go put this in the trash. Okay. And our potatoes should be nice and tender and soft. I always say find your biggest potato, and if you can smush your fork through it, then you're going to know it's ready. So look, we've got a big one right here. I'm just going to do it in my strainer, but you see how I can smush my fork right through it? Oops. That's when I know it is ready. And always find your biggest one. Here we go. So I've got my potatoes in here. We're going to put our butter in here. We're going to let that butter sit and melt for it. And we have 5 good-sized potatoes, so I'm going to use about 5 tablespoons of butter, like a tablespoon of butter per potato. And they're, as long as they're good-sized potatoes. We're going to let that sit and melt up.
I don't like your dishes so much. She ordered them from Target.
Yeah, I think they're so cute. I love them. I'm still working on finding my storage spots for them all. Okay, let me clear this off. And then we're going to go grab our sourdough out of the oven and let it sit there while we finish up the rest of dinner. Okay. I'll cancel that off. So again, we cooked it for 20 minutes at 450, and we've got this beautiful crust on it. I like a really light golden brown / blonde crust, and that is going to give you, it will give you a little bit of crunch, but it will keep your crust more chewy and not rock hard, because when it first comes out of the oven, it's still chewy, but the next day, if you overcook it to a really dark brown, it's going to be rock hard. So here is our beautiful sourdough. This is our rosemary, black pepper, and Parmesan cheese. We did a nice blonde cook on it. Look at our beautiful kind of golden brown at the bottom. We see where our expansion score is right there. That allows it to pop up and really burst through. And then, of course, I made my little teeny tiny wheat leaf design. But this is going to be delicious, and I think it's going to play really well with our dinner. I think the rosemary is going to play well with the chicken. Okay. Let me grab my onions. We're going to have saute them up. We'll throw in our green beans. Our chicken will be ready to flip here in a few minutes, and we'll whip up our mashed potatoes. So we are down in the final few minutes, which actually might be perfect because most of the time everybody always wants to see the crumb reveal on our sourdough, but you always need to let it sit for a few minutes. But I think today we'll have enough time to do a crumb reveal for you guys. Okay, let's get our onions. I'm just going to do long, thin slices because I want them to kind of match with the green beans that we're sauteing up. There we go. So just long and thin. I'm going to turn on, and let's get our olive oil. And then we're going to flip our chicken here because it looks like it's just about ready. I'm going to put about a tablespoon or so in here. We're going to let our onions saute up. And let's grab our chicken. Beautiful. We've got a lovely kind of golden fry on here. This one I'm going to rotate it, let it sit just a little bit longer. And let this one, I'm going to rotate and let these two cook maybe a minute or two longer, but that side is already perfect. Let's put that there. Let me grab my tongs. We're going to break apart our onions here, and then we'll toss in our green beans in just a second. Green beans will cook up fast. We'll actually put our lid on them to help them kind of steam up and get nice and tender. But we want those onions to caramelize up first. Here we go. Let's add in a little bit of cream to our potatoes, and then we're going to whip these guys up. I'm going to add in, I always start with about 1/4 of a cup, and then I add in a little bit more and more until I have it to the right, consistency. With mashed potatoes, I don't feel like you can just sit by a prescribed amount of butter and, cream to it, because some potatoes are starchier than others or bulkier, and so they might need more cream and whatnot. Let's get our hand mixer. We're going to do a quick whip. Because this is an all-metal pan, I'm going to just whip it right in here as if it was a bowl, which is nice. Don't do this with a nonstick, otherwise you'll ruin your nonstick. There we go. Got my first whip on. We're going to let it sit, let that cream and butter marry. And I'm going to flip my chicken now. I want to use this chicken.
You have a question? How often do you go to the store for ingredients?
I like to say I go once a week, but the reality is I'm probably at the store twice a week. Because there's always something that I didn't realize that we were running low on, that is, that I have to pick up midway. So twice a week, and I'm the person who goes in with 1 cart and leaves with 2 shopping carts. My 10-year-old daughter, she's always like so embarrassed by it. And I'm like, we're a big family. We've got a lot of food, to get. And my kids, imagine that. They're always complaining that we don't have any food in our house. And our house is very well stocked with food and treats, but there's never any food. Okay, let's whip this up again. I'm gonna whip it up nice and high. Okay, and I'm gonna add in my salt now and a little bit more cream because I want a soft whip on my mashed potatoes because I do like them really fluffy. We're gonna add in about a teaspoon or so of salt. I'm gonna add in, again, a smidge more cream. And you can always use half and half or milk if you want. Cream is gonna give you that nice, rich flavor. And to me, if you're having mashed potatoes, you're not on a diet. There we go. Beautiful. So we've got our mashed potatoes made. Excellent. Those will be ready. Give this a quick toss. It looks like we've got a good caramelization and sear on our onions. So we're going to pop in our green beans. And then I think our chicken will be about ready to go out, and we'll be ready to eat in a few minutes. Okay. Let's put in. I'm not going to use quite all of our green beans today because, again, half my children bailed out on me today. Do one more. It is always funny. You come home, and I was like, had this grand plan at lunch. I was like, I'm going to do pork chops, and we'll have all of this. And then text, and then I got another text, and then my daughter came home, and she's like, oh, can I please eat out the neighbors? And I'm like, go right ahead. Okay. So let me grab my lid so this can steam cook. One thing I love about the Hexclad is their lids have little holes in them and they're see-through. So it allows some of the moisture to come out so it doesn't get all, soggy. Beautiful. We've got a lovely, nice kind of golden fry on here. I'm going to put these on my drying rack over here, away from my apple pies, but that way they can all crisp up nicely. There we go. I'm going to let that one cook for just a smidge longer. While we're doing that, I'm going to flip our hand pies over here. Remember how we want to put our little bit of, look at that apple deliciousness right there. We're going to put a little bit of cinnamon sugar on this side so that you've got that nice flavor on both sides. Here we go. Beautiful. Okay, let's grab this last chicken out. I'm going to let it crisp up right there. I'm going to throw my last ones in, although I probably won't make you guys stay around for all of that because we'll be probably ready to plate up here in a minute or two. These are my last big ones. Okay. Let's grab this out of the way. And I'll do a quick kind of a clean. And let me grab ours. Okay. You can hear this steaming up nicely in here. Beautiful. You can just see how they already have a lovely bright green color, which is going to give them that nice, tender, crisp crunch to it. It almost acts like you're steaming them, but sauteing them at the same time. So you're going to get that sauteed flavor, but you'll have that tenderness as if you steam them. I was going to add a little bit of garlic salt and black pepper. And then we are about ready to serve up. We'll cut our sourdough in half, give you a crumb reveal, and then we'll plate up. Let's add a little bit of garlic salt and a pinch of black pepper, which I just find is really lovely with the green beans. Oh, man overboard. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Let me slide my mashed potatoes over here. And let me get my knife so we can see our beautiful crumb reveal. Now with sourdough at home, if you bake it up right away, don't ever cut into it right away. I know it's tempting to want to eat hot bread right away, but if you do, you're going to have a gummier sourdough because it needs time to steam up. You can already see how lovely this is going to be. Look at this beautiful, it's still a little hot. And here, this is our rosemary, black pepper, and Parmesan cheese. You can see kind of those swirls of black pepper in there. That's what we added on our inclusion. You've got some of our beautiful Parmesan cheese melted and delicious. So this is going to be excellent with our lunch today. And just look how soft it is. It's nice and soft and delicious, and that crust isn't going to be too hard. Well, guys, let's serve up dinner. Okay, I'm just gonna move this sideways. I'm gonna slide my chicken over here real quick. And let's get a spoon for our mashed potatoes. I've got my tongs for my green beans. And give these one last toss. I'm gonna turn them off. Okay, for dinner tonight, we are going to have our kind of herby fried chicken cutlet that we seasoned up with thyme, oregano, rosemary, onion powder, and a little bit of garlic salt, and then they're crusted with panko. We have our sauteed onions and green beans with just garlic salt and black pepper, but they'll just have this lovely tender crunch to it. A good serving of our mashed potatoes. They're nice and creamy, filled with cream, butter, and salt. A good chunk of our rosemary sour or Parmesan sourdough bread. And then for dessert, we will have our delicious homemade cinnamon apple hand pies that are made with a butter crust and then topped with cinnamon sugar. So delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for what we made. So we've got our herby, fried chicken cutlets, mashed potatoes, green beans, and then of course our cinnamon apple hand pies. And you can watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I have my all-clad pans. I've got my hex-clad pans in there, like knives, cutting board, all the different gadgets I use in the kitchen. But again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.